Hi, I'm Brian. If you've been using CrashPlan for a while, you may have noticed a setting on your organization for cold storage retention. This setting isn't always well understood, so I'd like to clarify what cold storage is and how you can interact with it. Looking at your organization detail page, you can see references to the cold storage feature in two places. We see a column near the top in the org summary box titled Cold. The number below this shows how much data exists in cold storage for your organization. Further down, under the Quotas tab in the org info box, we see a row titled Move Deactivated Archives to Cold Storage for. This gives us a hint about what we use this feature for. Cold storage is where archives go when they're no longer attached to an active device. Because a user will continue to consume a license as long as any of their devices has an archive stored on the CrashPlan cloud, deactivating users and holding their data in cold storage is not a method for protecting the backed up data, but freeing up a license. Instead, it is intended as a protection from accidental deletion of needed data when a user or device has been deactivated. As an example, it would prevent temporary issues with an identity provider, which incorrectly causes a user to be deactivated, from causing their backup to be irreversibly deleted. Since the archive gets put into cold storage, when an issue like this is identified, the user and devices can be reactivated and their backed up data will still be there. As I mentioned, when a device gets deactivated, its archive gets put into cold storage. This deactivation can occur automatically if you have provisioning set up, or it can be done manually. Let's look at what happens when you manually deactivate a device. From the device details page, we click on the action menu, then click deactivate. Accepting the pop-up warning that the archive will be deleted allows the device to be deactivated. This warning is important as it reminds us that archives aren't intended to be held in cold storage, if we know that we want the data from them. There's no real reason to put them there, since it doesn't free up a license. It's better to think of cold storage like the recycle bin on Windows. It's where your files or archive go when they're on their way to be deleted, but there's a safety measure in case you change your mind. Once the archive has been deactivated, we can see that the cold column now shows that there is some data there. If we click on that number, we're taken to the list of archives in cold storage for our organization. Here we can see information identifying the archive and the device it belonged to. We can also see the purge date on the far right. This is when an archive will be removed from cold storage. When an archive is put into cold storage, the purge date is set based on the retention setting. This is the field we saw earlier that says Move Deactivated Archives to Cold Storage for. Some of the CrashPlan product plans do not allow for the retention period to be changed, but in many cases you can modify the retention period to meet your needs. One thing to note, if you change your cold storage retention setting after an archive has already been put into cold storage, it will not change the purge date. This date is set when the archive enters this state. You can, however, manually change the purge date, or even purge the archive immediately. If you place a check next to the archive in the cold storage list, then click the action menu in the upper left, you will have the option to purge the archive or to change the purge date. This way you can free up licenses or ensure that data gets fully removed before the date set by your retention period. If you want to remove the archive from cold storage, but instead of deleting it, you want it to be reattached to the original device, you just need to reactivate the device and make sure it's set to use the original destination. Navigate to the deactivated device in the admin console. You may need to reactivate the user as well if they've been deactivated. From the deactivated device's detail window, click the action menu, then click Activate. In many cases, you'll see that there is now data for the device. This means that the archive has been reattached. If the stored use graph is still empty, and there should be data there, check the device settings to make sure it has a check next to its destination. Once the device has its original destination, the archive should automatically reattach and be removed from cold storage. You should now have a little better idea of what cold storage is and how you can interact with it in the CrashPlan environment. If you have any questions or you're running into trouble, please let us know. We're here to help.